Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Leads meeting. Today we're going to address a very important subject where we have a lot of things to learn. This is about probably the worst marine ecological disaster we had in Sri Lanka in 2021. And the saga is still ongoing. I mean, if you look at the this recent in this month, Supreme Court allows TISL, is the Transparency International Sri Lanka, to intervene in Express Pearl case, and basically the concerns are a lot. This TISL expressed grave concerns about allegations of interference and extraneous pressure related to the compensation claim arising from Express Pearl disaster. These allegations cast doubt on the integrity of the compensation process and call for a transparent investigation. So these are the problems that's going on in the background, and that's relatively easy to explain why from the current background that we have. Now, today I have got a speaker. He's spoken about this subject before for us as well, 2 years ago. Deshai Botheju. Deshai is a PhD. He's at the moment a consultant for Norwegian petroleum and marine industry. And his area of expertise is the safety, engineering, and sustainability. It's good to introduce a little bit of background to him. And Deshai is actually born and raised in a dynamic suburban neighborhood of Colombo in Sri Lanka. And he's got a bachelor's degree in chemical and process engineering from University of Maratua in 2002. And I must mention about this GPA, and he had a GPA of 3.96. Now, GPA is a summary of the average performance over the all 4 years of training in the university. And the maximum score is 4. So you can see his capabilities there. Then he completed a master's degree in environmental engineering at University of Maratua, followed by a master's degree in energy and environment technology from University of Southeastern Norway. And he's currently residing in Norway because he completed a PhD from the same university in 2010. And his experience at the moment is extensive in safety and sustainability engineering and environmental technology and process engineering disciplines, and also experimentation scale laboratory and pilot studies to very large scale, highly complicated field in the engineering project. So he's a master in this subject of environmental safety as well. So I'm glad he's here today, sparing his time to share some thoughts about this very same disaster that we had 2 years ago. Deshai, thank you very much for coming, and you can put on your slides in a sec. I'll just stop sharing here. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Chula, thank you very much for introducing me. And also, I really thank you for organizing this kind of events or forums under different topics, timely topics at different times. So thank you very much for all those things. So anyway, before I go forward, I should also maybe introduce Professor Ajit D. Alvis. I hope Professor Ajit has joined.
Yes, joined.
Yeah, sure. Right. So from the start of this disaster, I worked quite closely with Professor Ajit because he was actually handling the local investigation team together with the Sri Lanka Marine Protection Authority in the country. So he's actually very well updated to the event and also what had been going on and what is the situation right now. So maybe after a while, he might also give a certain update on the socio-economic situation currently we are in with respect to this event. But before that, I will cover some of the technical aspects, and primarily my focus is to look at the most important lessons with respect to technological aspects that we must extract in order to avoid this kind of catastrophes happening in future. not only in marine industry, but generally in the industrial sector with respect to different industrial accidents. Because we can, of course, extract many lessons at different levels with respect to accident investigations, handling of this kind of accidents, and of course, the preparation and avoidance of this kind of disasters in future, both at our country level as well as in international level. So those are the things I am going to kind of talk about briefly. And then we can, of course, have this discussion. And I positively think that Professor Alvis will also talk a little bit on the latest situation with respect to these legal battles as well as the socio-economic situation and what is really going on right now at this moment, because he's very well updated on that. Since I'm a little bit away from Sri Lanka, I'm not always very up to date on these socio-economic things, but I can, of course, cover the technical aspects. Right. Then without delay, let's go into the topic, and let me share some of the and even I can see this
Yeah,
stop
it's
share.
good.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
you
Yeah,
got
It's
it.
okay.
it's coming. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So
it
you see
says
my
there's a
screen.
new button. It says there's an AI companion that needs to put on as well.
Okay.
That's what's
Right.
happening.
I'm also not aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I remember actually about 1.5 years ago, we did some presentation on that, and we did had a brief discussion organized by Chula. So I also participated, and then I I was talking about little bit, and in here also I put those old slides that we presented previously. These things, maybe if you have some of you, at least Chula might remember some of the things.
I've
So
actually copied the YouTube link to everybody when I
right,
sent the invite.
right, excellent, yeah. So since some of you might new to this discussion, I will give you a very brief introduction
I
to
think
the
it's good,
event.
yeah, because
Yeah.
independently, a lot of people will look at it
Right,
later.
right, of course, yeah. So Express Pearl, it's container ship that was sailing between primarily Singapore and the Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's called a feeder ship. It's just continuing its normal route in between different ports of these countries. And then every port, they take some containers or offload some containers. It's just like a routine ship.
If you go to your
I think I
screen
will
mode
present
on,
this.
that's it. That will probably show better.
Now it. Yeah,
Right.
sorry, I forgot it. Yeah. Right. It's a Singapore flagged ship. It's quite large, but not the one of the largest, but length 196 and beam 35. That means it's a quite large ships. And the intriguing thing here is that it was built 2021, the same year as it sank. So just like the Titanic ship, not on its first journey, but first voyage, but at least within the same year, it built, it just disappeared from the scene. So it's quite interesting thing, at least as far as I can see. So this happened in May 2021. It was reported that there was an acid leak on board the ship starting from 11th of May. And then it was reported that the acid leak was related to a 25 metric ton container. Acid was identified as nitric acid, HNO3. And by 20th May, it arrived at Colombo. So that's where the final episode happened. So it arrived at like late hours on 19th May actually, or early hours of 20th May. Then while arriving at Colombo, it requested some rework on a leak in nitric acid container, and then request was using an email. It was basically an email sent to the shipping company, the local agent of the shipping company. not even the Ports Authority. So by midday of 20th, some smoke was reported on cargo hold, one of the cargo hold. And but just after 15 minutes, ship itself confirmed that situation was under control because they released their firefighting system based on carbon dioxide. Then after about 2 hours, they again reported that there is smoke visibility, a visible smoke in the same area of the ship. And but once again, they confirmed that's kind of under control. But on the same day evening, Sri Lanka Ports Authority's fire team went on board for a visit, and but they reported that there was no visible fire, but there was a brownish smoke fumes coming out from a certain location on the ship. You can see in this picture, taken at around actually taken on 20th of May while it is arriving Colombo. So you can already see some brownish smoke coming from or emanating from this location, quite close to the forward section of the ship. So, but on 20th night, close to midnight, an observable fire was reported. And then only these Sri Lanka Ports Authorities tugboats and fire teams responded by using these tugboats having their fire cannons. And then it continued from that point onwards. The firefighting went on for a number of days, and sometimes the fire was disappeared. At least the visible flames went off. But then when the firefighting stops, it came back. So it's like that. This cycle repeated a number of times before the fire was actually started rigorously and engulfed the whole ship. So these are some pictures from that on those early days. This is the Sri Lankan Ports Authority team inspecting the ship. That is 20th May evening. And you can see by that time, this brownish smoke is quite rigorous, coming more and more from the this particular position on the ship. And then at the close to the midnight of 20th or morning hours of 21st, now you can see a quite intensive flame close to the same location where this brownish smoke was emanating. So now there is a real fire by that time. And this is from the 21st early morning, the morning hours after sunrise. So in these morning hours, you can see there was no visible flame, but a lot of smoke coming from the same location as we saw in the previous picture. So that means the previous brownish smoke coming from this location. You cannot say it is directly from the top container, but somewhere in this area. Maybe it is from some container levels down in the same position around. But now there are no visible flames. But then this cycle went on again and again. Sometimes visible flames comes in, and then the tugboats responds with fire cannons, and then the fire disappears. But they were never able to completely subside this fire because it just keep coming back, even though you just you were able to subside these flames initially. But yeah, some more pictures, because later in this presentation I'm not going to use a lot of pictures because I want to talk about more of the facts that I want to emphasize. So I'm just going through some of the pictures right now at this very beginning. Yes, the tail of the accident, we can go into more details later on. And like I'm showing here, there was an explosion happened on 25th after fire going on for a few days. And then just after this explosion, the first debris arrived on our shores, close to this from Migamo or Nigambo areas primarily. That was the area the first debris were noted. But after that, these nurdles and debris started appearing in all along this western coast of our country. So you can see clearly see this container is obviously damaged due to explosion, and it looked quite intensive explosion because container typical shipping container is a quite a strong structure. So to deform it like that, the explosion must have been quite strong um, by looking at this. And there are lots of different types of debris were visible on our shores. And some of these things, like you can see, may be interpreted as kind of partially polymerized stuff, because we know that on this ship there were so many different chemical agents, including these knurls, as well as different polymerization agents. These are the plastic knurls or resin pellets. That was the primary concern of pollution, because this is stuff there was so much of shipload on that express pearl, so much of nodal pollution occurred all along our coast. Just a picture showing the approximate location of this nitric acid container. So if you can see, this is kind of the cross profile of the ship, and then the nitric acid container, which was supposed to be leaking, was located at this location. All this, sorry, I'm just missing some. Yeah. All these red containers are the hazardous cargo containers, and the blue ones are other types of cargo, which were not categorized as hazardous cargos. Then immediately, this is kind of showing the surrounding containers close to this nitric acid container. Some food products on the side, and resins that I was talking about, epoxy resins, and yeah, a lot of actually resin agents, polymerization resins were there. And many of these resins, when exposed to fire, they are rapidly combustible. And also after a certain period, they can also undergo explosions, because these are very reactive agents also, especially exposed to fires. Yes, now after a few days, you can see this is 25th. This picture was taken 25th of May. Now close to the same location, now fire is spread across the ship, but not along the ship, but the same location, but now it's engulfed all surrounding areas by this fire. And you can see this location corresponds to quite well with this initial brownish smoke emanation point on this. This is the kind of area now engulfed here with fire. So it's quite clear that this initial event is clearly connected to the eventual fire event on the ship. Now, by after 2 more days, I think, now, or 1 more day, now the fire starts to spread along the ship as well, and you can see a lot of blackish smoke also. That means there are lots of polluting agents or partially combusted agents emanating with the fire. Now, okay, I think I can see the date here. This is by 26th May. This is screen, I will, yeah, 26th May. Now, so almost the whole ship was engulfed now. And you can clearly see that there was no point of firefighting anymore, because you are not going to save anything by fighting this kind of fire. The only thing you can do was that you could cool down this ship structure a little bit with tugboats, but I don't think at this stage any firefighting ship was able to come to effective length or effective distance to fight this fire. By this time, almost all firefighting vessels just sailed away from the ship, because the heat was so intensive, so you cannot go near to fight this fire at this point. So everybody had to move away from the ship. So now this is by 30th May. Yeah, 30th May. Now you can see the fire engulfed the ship, and then it kind of burned through the stuff, burnable stuff, and then primarily extinguish itself, because all the primary flammable agents or the material are now burned through. And of course, firefighting might also help a little bit, might have also helped a little bit at this stage, but now the fire is basically subsided. And this was the end of it. By 3rd June, the ship was sank while trying to tow it away. And then this was the rubble remaining in our seas. So that was the final status after the incident. Yeah, so there can be a lot of things to discuss. And I'm just showing here some of the hazardous agents that was on board the ship. Nitric acid, vinyl acetate. This can also be explosive agent, and aluminium remelting byproducts. This is kind of the products, this kind of waste product resulting of aluminium production. Aluminium is produced by using electrolysis, and this is the product remaining in the bottom of the electrolysis vessel. These are kind of waste products, but highly reactive. These are reactive with even with water. If you add some water to aluminium remelting products, they can generate different gases: acetylene, hydrogen, even ammonia. So many different gases that can emanate, and those gases itself are combustible and flammable. So if you put some water on the aluminum remelting products, they can lead to escalation of fire rather than extinguishing. And different agents, lithium-ion batteries even. Methanol, that is also a flammable agent. And also there were very environmentally toxic or aquatic toxic products like perfumery products. These are flammable solvents, but as well as they are also environmentally toxic. And sodium methylate also in alcohol, it's also a flammable and combustible product. So there were so many agents that could feed fire and also initiate explosions. And in addition to that, there were quite amount of heavy fuel oil that's used for ship propulsion, and some marine gas oil like diesel, and also lube oil. These are kind of direct fuels that could feed the fire and also lead to explosions under certain circumstances. There were about 620 or close to 700 cubic meters of altogether this waste. Right. Maybe I should not talk about too much into these reaction details because can consume a lot of time. But at least if I show you this one, this shows you that this nitric acid can react with any sort of agent or any material containing carbon and produce this nitrogen dioxide and also nitric oxide. And this NO2, it is it emits as a brownish gas that you could clearly see in the pictures that emanating this brownish gas. That should be nitrogen dioxide. But the key thing here is that this is a highly exothermic reaction. So when nitric acid reacts with any carbon containing material, it can be food, wood, or textile, or anything with carbon. So it can basically react with any material containing carbon, which is the case for most of the ship cargo, and then generate nitrogen dioxide, nitrous oxide, plus lots of heat. And this heat can start a fire and feed the fire. So the problem here is that unless you stop this chemical reaction, you can't really extinguish this fire just by putting some water. So if you put some water on top of this area, it is not going to stop this reaction. The only way you can stop this reaction is to use large amount of water at the core of this reaction. That means you primarily have to put lots of water and engulf this whole area undergoing this reaction and cool down the temperature of this reaction, because if you cool down this reaction, then this reaction will not proceed. So that's the only way you can do that. But if the location of fire is well hidden in the ship under a number of containers, then there is no real way of putting lots of water into the reactive core of this fire. So that is exactly what happened in this case. You are putting lots of water on top of these visible flames, but basically this water is going on top of the other containers. That obviously was not going really into this reactive core. So that's why the fire never extinguished. Primarily, you put some water, then you can extinguish the visible flames. But in the core or in the hidden beneath, this reaction was continuing because you are not able to cool down this real location. So that's the challenge with chemical reaction based fires. This is not normal combustion reaction. This is a chemical reaction making lots of heat. So that was the challenge in this situation. And there could have been various other reactions as well as this reaction. For example, under heat, the nitric acid could also thermally decompose into nitrogen dioxide and some oxygen. This oxygen can also feed the fire. That's oxygen can always feed the fire. So even if you use some carbon dioxide extinguishing agent to remove the environmental oxygen, this reaction itself can generate more oxygen to feed the fire. Yeah. The problem with this kind of chemical reaction is that if you put a small amount of water on top of nitric acid, that will result in a water dissociation reaction. It's just water it's just a water reacts with nitric acid, and then the acid will dissociate it into this hydronium ions and nitrate ions. And this reaction is also exothermic. That means instead of putting lots of water, if you put a small amount of water, this can indeed have the opposite effect. Now you are generating more heat that can feed the fire. So that's another challenge with this kind of things. I'm not going to go through other reactions. There could have been lots of other reactions feeding the fire and also leading to explosions. So I think I will actually I was talking about these things during last presentation. What are the impacts on different safety barriers and safety barrier related repercussions. So I will not repeat these parts here today, but instead of that, I would like to go back into the beginning of this presentation and talk about some of the key lessons that we should or we can extract from this event or this disaster. So yes, so there are some slides. Actually, I quickly put some slides here today, so don't expect a lot of pictures anymore. I just put these slides as kind of guidance for me to talk about some of the lessons that we should try to extract. And one thing here is that this Express Pearl disaster it made a quite unique accident in the history of all marine accident. It is not just another ship accidents. Due to its unique cargo and the way it propagated and the actions and the procedures surrounding this whole event made it quite unique accident, ship and marine accident in the whole history of marine accidents. So it will go down in history and also as a case example, needing a lot of attention and review by a lot of researchers and industry expert decades from now even. So it will create a quite unique example and case study for everybody to study and learn from. So that we should know about that. Yes, so these lessons that we can learn from this disaster can have different levels of repercussions. Primarily, it can have repercussions on marine regulations and marine standards. So that means this incident or the disaster can impact international level maritime regulations. But that's one level. But in addition to that, countries like us, Sri Lanka, and also developing countries in the region, especially the whole developing world, can learn many lessons at regional and country levels to face this kind of disasters in future and how to manage them. So that's another level. And of course, Sri Lanka itself can have their own local learnings from this event. So that's why I want to emphasize that we can interpret this at different levels, international, regional, and also local levels. So this whole thing also surrounding this fact regarding the maritime transport of dangerous goods. Because like I said, this container ship had lots of dangerous goods, and then they were transporting in an kind of ordinary built container ship. So we need to thoroughly question the safety of transporting such large consignments of dangerous goods in ordinarily built container ships. That's one of the important points we need to discuss. Shula, by the way, how about the time? So we began, I think, now almost 6:30, isn't it? In Sri Lankan time, it's 3 o'clock
Yeah,
here.
we've
Yeah,
done about 35 minutes. That's okay. You
yeah,
have time. We
yeah.
normally
Okay.
do a maximum of 2 hours, including
Okay. Okay.
discussion.
Okay. Then easily I can cover. I can go
Yeah,
for
yeah,
another
yeah,
30 minutes, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So actually, every slide can be discussed in a very detailed level, but I'm not going to do that. I will just take on kind of brief in brief details, considering the time that we don't have so much of. So this International Maritime Dangerous Goods code, or IMDG code, that dictates primarily the maritime transport of dangerous goods. It has so many of requirements and guidelines on how to transport these dangerous goods in maritime industry. So the transport of nitric acid is very clearly defined and addressed in this IMDG code. If you go to this part 3 and goods list, and also this this UN number 1796, it is corresponding to nitric acid. So there are significant guidelines especially relevant to nitric acid transport, and also and also this IMDG code clearly explains that leaking nitric acids can react with organic matter, and that can result in ship fires. That was a very well known fact, actually, that I have to mention. It was nothing mysterious. The whole situation was clearly defined in this IMDG code. In this case, it is suspected that the nitric acid container or the leak was resulted from poor securing of the container inside this there is a primary containment of the acid. The acid is not just in the ship container, but within the ship container you should have another primary containment vessel to carry the acid. So that means either this primary containment or the containment vessel had not been properly secured within the container, or the container itself was not properly handled. Either it was hit by some other containers or dropped or something. Nobody knows what really happened at the very beginning of this journey. But it is seriously suspected that there should have been some real mishap related to securing of this container, the primary container of the acid vessel, or the handling of the ship. So actually, there are some investigations done on, some surveys done on this securing of dangerous goods. And for example, this paper from 2020, they did some investigation, and also they observed there are so many cases of dangerous goods transported in marine industry without properly securing. That had almost become a normal practice. And when they talk to these industrial actors, they are basically telling that these requirements are so rigorous, and it is not simply economical to secure their goods in so much of detail level securing. So they just simply secure as much as they could, and then they took it easy. So it looked like that this is a widespread problem in the shipping industry, just not following up following the real requirements. So it's no wonder that these accidents happen in time to time. And also we have this CTU code that particularly that is also from International Maritime Organization, and that clearly indicate the requirement of packaging of cargo transport units. So this is also a code that those parties who are shipping this dangerous good must follow. You know, in this industry, sometimes this non-compliance is becoming the norm rather than the rare event, just because in most of these cases nothing would happen actually. So then they think okay, we did this like this and nothing happened, and then why should we spend money and time to do these rigorous things? But the problem was that in those rare occasion, when the things go wrong, the consequences can be really severe, just like Express 12 case. So that's the problem here. The probability might be low, but the consequences are so high. That means actually the risk is really high. That's why we cannot accept this kind of loose behavior with respect to this requirement. So then the question is that how to enforce these IMO regulations. That is the challenge when we come to real enforcement. It is really hard, or unless it is really impossible even, to check each and every container ship or each and every container with respect to these all requirements, considering the number of huge or the large number of shipping containers that we are being handled every day due to our modern economies. So it is simply impossible to check every container. But telling that we cannot take it easy. Maybe it is high time to implement more rigorous spot checking and also implementing quite high fines whenever you find this kind of abnormal or the non-compliances. It's just like our normal traffic violations. You know, the police cannot simply check the speed of every vehicle on every road. That is simply impossible. So the only thing police can do is that do some spot checks time to time to give or keep some pressure on the society, and to know or to let people know that there can be checkpoint at any time, and then you are not going to continue speeding so long before you get caught. So that is the same thing here. So it's impossible to check everything, but there should be some spot checks or some pressurization from regulatory authorities to keep people in compliance. And also, we should also remember that at the time this incident happens, that is mid of 2021, the COVID pandemic was there. And also, we know in many locations, the manning level had been reduced, and even the existing procedural check-in were reduced to bare minimum. So that we really don't know, but that could have very well be a factor in this case also. So in many places, people were working under very difficult situations. So that means manning level were very low. So that could have been also played a role. We never know. Then we can also talk about this responsibility of ports. And we know at least two ports, this Hamad port in Qatar and also Hazira in India. They refused to unload this leaking nitric acid container even when the ship captain requested some rework on the concerned nitric acid container. And those ports told the ship that they don't have enough facilities to handle this kind of or at least to rework on this kind of dangerous cargoes. That was the reason. And it just looked like that they didn't want to have unnecessary trouble to handle a leaking acid container. Whether they had enough facilities or not, it looked like that they just tried to avoid to face this trouble with this container. Um, so in one way, one might define this also kind of irresponsible act from these authorities or shipping the ports authorities. But on the other hand, we also don't know how this communication went on between the ship and these ports. You know that we know one thing very clearly, that even when this ship was arriving at Colombo, they never told Colombo authorities that there was a dangerous situation, or not even they told Colombo authorities that there is a leak in acid container. They only sent an email to their own agent in Colombo. You can think that if you take the situation seriously, you never just send an email. You send only an email when there's nothing urgent. So that itself reveals the mentality and the level of gravity they were taking this. There was almost looked like there was no gravity in it. They just took this as an ordinary incident needing some reworking rather than real hazardous event or dangerous event. So that explains many things. So maybe that was the same way they communicate to this Hazira port and also Hamad port in Qatar, so that it's even not a surprise that those ports didn't take it seriously. So I'm quite, on the other hand, I'm quite sure if the ship requested this as an urgent situation, I think the ports are bound to take it seriously. So then we really don't know how ship communicated to them, and I don't think those records were out in the public. Maybe Professor Alvis can correct me, but I don't know. I don't have any information telling that those communications were ever been public. Anyhow, I still think that the International Maritime Organization should look at that event very carefully about this refusal of free work by these ports, and maybe make requirement more rigorous for ports authorities when it comes to dangerous goods. So it is I am most responsible to analyze, investigate it more thoroughly, and maybe it is time to put more responsibility on these ports. Then we can talk about this onboard decision making. I think we were also partially talking about that. So most of the critical decisions with respect to this incident, or that before it become an accident, we can call it an incident. There was this incident of acid leaking going on for at least 10 days before this fire event happened. So during all those 10 days, um, there could have many decisions made primarily by ship captain, but I think most of the time, or at least some of the time, he must have made these decisions by consulting some of his crew members, at least senior crew members, including chief engineer and also the second officer on the ship, and maybe cargo officer. But in addition to that, I think at least in many occasions, he must have been in communication with his company on the land. So we should believe that the whole decision making was a responsibility between the captain and some of his senior officers, as well as the shipping company. So and once again, it is also a matter of the way captain communicated the whole thing to his shipping company on land, I think in Singapore. So so it is really needed to review this whole decision making process, and it almost looked like that the decision making process did not leave to take any severe actions with respect to this leak in acid container, because if they took it seriously, they could they had ample opportunity or time to handle it differently. um, So even this IMDG code has clear reference to handling of leaking nitric acid on board ships, like I mentioned before. So it is not known whether this crew had a clear opinion, or at least a clear understanding about the IMDG code references to with reference to the cargo they were transporting. So that's another question mark. And by looking at the eventual event, it doesn't look like that they had that understanding. So I think IMO and other international regulatory bodies must increase their attention on this industry awareness of relevant standards, code, and also the way they perceived this kind of warning signs prior to accidents. So it is now the responsibility of these maritime organizations to look at the current level of industry awareness, and if needed, they should enhance that. So that, I mean, it is not just sufficient to make regulations and the requirements. They need to do more to make sure that industry parties have enough understanding about this requirement, and also they take stuff seriously to be in compliance. So that is also partly their responsibility. We can talk about human aspects here. So we talk about these human factors in engineering nowadays more often, because in previous days we believed, in engineering at least, we believed that if you have good enough systems and the machines, the things will work fine. But over the years we realized that having sophisticated machines and systems is not simply good enough. Accident can still happen due to lots of human errors and human factors. So because there are so many accidents happened with very sophisticated systems, with sophisticated safety systems, just because of human errors. So nowadays, even in these engineering courses, they started to teach these things related to human factors and how to address human factors in engineering systems. So even in this situation, we should look at the human elements. Primarily in this case, human elements involves this captain, because he was the chief decision maker on the ship. So his behavior and his actions must be reviewed with respect to modern human factor engineering principles. Especially, we should look at how he handled some decisions under stress. And for example, and also we should look at his experience in the industry. For example, another captain with more years of experience could have handled this differently, or could he? Those are the questions we must ask. And not only that, the human factors are deeply embedded in company cultures also, because the captain itself is not an independent person in this case. He is a part of the company culture, company safety culture. So a company's culture must facilitate free decision making when it comes to safety related matters. We don't know exactly how did this how the safety culture worked in this particular shipping company, but if it had a good safety culture or positive safety culture, then it should have allowed the decision makers like captain to make decisions uh, even when it was not very clear that whether this event could lead to catastrophe or not, in the expense of economic impacts. You know what I mean? What I mean is that if you are the decision maker in this situation, and now you are not really sure whether this event will lead to a catastrophic outcome, because you take decision based on limited amount of information available to you, right? In this case, you see some brownish smoke coming out of a container and some acid leak. And if you are not very good in this IMDG code, and if you are not thoroughly have referred to these codes, and also if you are not very deep, not having a very deep understanding about these chemical processes, you might not really know what could happen after that. But under that situation, you might have some suspicion whether this could lead to a rigorous fire and catastrophic accident. But even if you have that suspicion, then you need to take a decision based on the surrounding company culture, the situation is that you can make some drastic decisions. For example, um, declare emergency on this ship and take it to the nearest harbor and declare emergency and ask them to take out all the containers and everything, and then evacuate people from the ship and etc. Those are drastic measures that will have serious economic repercussions. And then from the company side, you should have that freedom. Even if you make an error in this situation, taking the stuff too seriously, and that could result in some serious economic repercussions, economic losses for your shipping company, then you must not face bad outcome from the shipping company. If that is the case, we will tell that company is having a good safety culture. But the contrary is that if you take some risk-based decisions and ended up that having lots of economic losses, and then you are taking all the blame from the company, asking why you did that without clear evidence, just because of suspicion. And then if you take that blame, then you are having a very poor safety culture. So that's why I'm telling, sometimes we cannot really directly blame the captain alone, or the some of the officers alone. They have to work in a certain safety culture embedded in that company that could be positive or negative. So everything must be evaluated before we start blaming different people. Yeah, so I think I also talked about this onboard handling of the event in that scenario, in that discussion. And perhaps I was talking about this drastic event. One of such drastic event was that removing this particular leaking container from the ship and overboarding it. So at once one can see that that's kind of drastic event. You are not supposed to really overboard dangerous good from the ship, because then you are really polluting the ocean. But think about the eventual repercussion. It could have been 100 times or 1,000 times better to overboard this nitric acid container rather than letting the ship underwent this catastrophic event and having this huge level of pollution. Even this conventions, Marpol Convention allows overboarding of dangerous goods, even overboarding of these containers, if you face with a serious event that can result in complete destruction of your ship and also the human lives. Under those circumstances, it is possible, even legally possible, to overboard or put this particular cargo overboard. So the question is that, had this ship captain evaluated such drastic measures, or was it technically possible? Because even handling this kind of cargo in the middle of the ship might not be very easy, especially under serious weather conditions. But we never knew whether even such decisions were evaluated. All the evidence indicate that they did not take this situation so seriously to consider such drastic measures as something they should do. So that's why you can see even they just send an email about that without really calling for help, even when they were arriving at Colombo. Yeah, we talked about that, how they behaved when arriving at Colombo. And then we know that when they were, so they arrived at Colombo 20th or 19th, late hours of 90th May. And then by midday 20th, they had some clear visible smokes emanating from one of the cargo hold. You know, now this ships has cargo, they have at least two different areas. Over the shipboard, that's what you saw, those containers are loaded. But then they have this cargo hold below the deck level. So those are closed. That is a closed environment having different cargo hold. So they noticed smoke, or at least their fire alarms. Smoke alarms were alarming from this below deck cargo holds. And what they did was that they released their carbon dioxide based firefighting systems. So these carbon dioxide based firefighting systems are meant for enclosed environment, because when you release that, the whole environment must be engulfed with carbon dioxide, which basically removes oxygen from your fire, and that's how it extinguishes fires. And then you have to evacuate all the people before you release these carbon dioxide agents. And also, the area must be engulfed. You cannot use these carbon dioxide systems on an open environment. It's not simply effective because you are not going to remove oxygen from an open environment. On the other hand, carbon dioxide based firefighting systems cannot cool down really the environment. It is just removing oxygen. But like I explained in the very beginning, by pointing at that chemical reactions, to extinguish this kind of chemical fires, you need the cooling. That is the primary thing you can use. So the basic way you can do is to put lots of water into that reactive core and the cool down it. That is to bring it below reactive temperatures. With carbon dioxide, that is not an option. You can just remove oxygen for a part of the time, but like I said, this is a chemical reaction. It generates heats, and under certain circumstances, it can also generate their own oxygen. If you disintegrate nitric acid, you can have oxygen out of that, even if you remove the oxygen from the surrounding by using carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide was not a good option to fight this kind of chemical fire. Yeah. And then it says that they had two occasions of release in this carbon dioxide system. They first had first release, and then they notified Colombo Ports Authority that the fire was now subsided. But after some time, they said the fire, the smoke is back again. That means the smoke alarms are going or triggered again. And then they released the rest of the carbon dioxide system. They released all carbon dioxide remaining on board. These carbon dioxide systems based on some stored carbon dioxide cylinders. So it's a limited capacity. Once you release everything, then there is no longer you have any firefighting system, at least no carbon dioxide system. You might have some firefighting hoses, but no carbon dioxide system. This is another aspect we need to have high attention, because the whole ship was designed as a container ship. It was not designed as a ship designed for carrying particularly hazardous agents. In the oil and gas industry, we use completely different set of design criteria and standards. For example, these oil tankers, they have rigorous firefighting arrangement, especially with water systems, large amount of water-based firefighting systems, water cannons, and deluge systems, and some sprinklers also, and also for water fog or water mist systems for these enclosed environments. So there are lots of design measures in these oil tankers or the gas tankers or other ships particularly designed for this kind of hazardous cargo. But this was not that kind of ship. This was kind of just ordinary ship carrying some containers of hazardous cargo. So this is a question we need to ask, and also the regulators, especially at international level, must address how much dangerous cargo you can allow in this kind of ordinary container ships, which are not having specific design measures, firefighting system, and also training or procedures to handle this kind of situations. Like I said, when it comes to particularly designed ships carrying hazardous cargo, the situation is very different. The crews are particularly designed, they're trained, and there are particular procedures which are not available in this ship. So that is some learning we must try to adapt. Right, onboard fire response. I think, yes, we discussed that now. An initial assessment by Colombo authorities. I told you that on 20th evening, there was a team from Colombo authorities went on board Express Pearl, and they saw this brownish smoke emanating from a particular location. But the conclusion was that they simply said that they cannot see any fire, So they also didn't take it seriously. They just observed and went off board. That's what happened. So ship crew didn't take it seriously, and also even Colombo authorities didn't, or the ports authorities didn't take it so seriously. They were just telling that there was no visible fire, so they just went aboard without responding to anything, responding to the fire. They didn't take this brownish smoke as a fire, but to a non-personnel people who know the basis of this brownish smoke, it should have been very clear that there is an exothermic chemical reaction going on. Now it is just a matter of time that it can erupt into a fire unless you really cool down this reactive core. So that decision was never taken before the flames eventually erupted. Right. Right. Then the first flames appeared on 20th or late hours of 20th May or very early hours of 21st, basically at close to midnight. Then the ship asked for help from Colombo Ports Authority's fire departments, and then only these tugboats having fire cannon responded to the fire and started spraying fire cannons, water jets on top of this ship. That's how it happened. But the problem was, like I mentioned, they were just putting water on top of the containers, but it was quite clear that they were not really addressing, or they were not really reaching the reactive core embedded below at a certain position within these containers. So they were just cooling the surrounding, and due to that cooling, the initial flames were going down, but after a while, the flames coming back, and then they are just putting water again, flames subside, and some smokes come back, is remaining, and then this cycle went on for a number of days before even they were not able to cope up with that, and then the real fire start engulfing the whole ship. That's how it went on. But the situation was that it was later reported that one of the leading marine service company based in Colombo, a local company, they reportedly offered that they could handle this event a little bit differently, and actually they are also a salvo company, and they had almost all required equipment to remove some of the containers, put some containers offload, and then direct water directly into the this leaking container or the burning container. But the report says that the shipping company not accepted their offer, and instead of that, the shipping company brought some foreign expert team from foreign countries on board the ship to respond to fire and advise firefighting. So that could have been also a critical mistake. Maybe at this point, the local authorities must have intervened and maybe given direct authority to the local service company to intervene and do whatever they could. So at this point, before the fire engulfed the whole ship, the best thing they could have done, maybe the only thing they could have done, was to try to remove some of the surrounding containers and directly put water jets into the burning location. And that I personally believe that was the only thing they could have done at this stage, but that was not done, unfortunately. And also by until 24th of May, the ship crew, or most of the crew, remained on board together with this foreign team brought down there to assist firefighting. And it was very apparent. Actually, they were on board, and there was a quite visible big fire going on at the forward section of the ship, and they were locating the people were staying on board the ship the rest of the areas, and it was very clear by this time, and explosion can happen, because now you have a you have a visible fire going on, and this is a ship carrying lots of combustible, flammable, and explosive agents. So to anybody know the situation, it was very clear that it was very dangerous to stay on board this ship. Uh, Explosion was an imminent possibility, but they disregard this danger and continue to stay until 24th of May, when the first explosion happened. That's just after that those containers were went aboard and floating. You could appeared on our shores. I show you one picture with this explosion damaged container. They came on shore just after this explosion on 24th of May, I think morning hours. So due to that explosion, at least one person was injured. Injury serious for hospitalization, and then only they removed or evacuated this crew. So I really believe that well before that, either local authorities or the ship crew themselves must have taken that decision to evacuate people. Otherwise, they were really endangering human life. Yes, this explosion we were talking about, and also consequently, there were more explosions happening on the ship after this first explosion. And also immediately after that first explosion event, they observed that suddenly this fire event also escalated. Now you can see the fire was rapidly escalating, engulfing more and more areas after this first explosion. And by that time, these firefighting tugboats had to relocate themselves further distance away from the ship, and effectively they could not do any useful firefighting by that time, because the fire was so intense and the explosions were happening, and basically they had to abandon firefighting. By that time, I know this Sri Lankan Air Force also dropped some chemical solid chemical based firefighting agents on top of the ship, but I think that's kind of almost useless thing. You are not going to fight this kind of huge ship fire with some kilograms of chemical powder. That was basically unnecessary thing, according to my own opinion. That was really not useful. Other than you are just polluting the ocean with some of these chemicals, because when you are dropping these chemicals, you are not always able to drop everything on the ship. Maybe at least 25-30% of the these chemical powdered packages were falling into the sea rather than onto the ship. So I think that was really unnecessary thing. We can talk a little bit about media responses. Yeah, I think time we almost spent 1 hour. I will try to make it quicker, a little bit quick, and finish maybe within another 15 minutes, perhaps. Now, this is also important topic, the societal and media response. First of all, we didn't see any responsible reporting from most of the medias, including social media. So the media were primarily trying to do a kind of blame game. They were just looking for people to blame at, rather than really reporting the true facts, or also trying to give the real risk picture of the event. The most of the reporting were based on blame game. Try to put finger at somebody, or the authority, or poor person, or the ship captain, or the government, or whatever. And in this scenario, there were so many local citizen scientists also coming on board with this new social media platforms. You know, that is this is now situation compared to some 10 years back. Now everybody can be a reporter and give their opinion and the advices. So there were so many. I saw so many citizen scientists coming on board social media and giving various guidance without real input from the real event, or without facts and figures, because since actually at least we Professor Alvis and me and some of our other group, we had some sort of inside information, but then when we look at some opinions from social media platforms, people posting on social media platform, we can see that they don't know anything about what's really happening, but expressing different opinions, which were not really useful at that time. So that is one of the things we observed about this media response. And the other situation is that, and one reason for that kind of chaos reporting was that there was no proper media center to give some credible information, and also give a credible risk picture to the public. In this kind of rapidly evolving situations, it's very important to have a credible location, one location, credible institution or authority issuing some time to time updates and giving the real risk picture. And one problem in Sri Lanka is that public do not always trust government institutions. There can be so many reasons for that. So this distrust can lead to chaos, because people not believe in what government institution were telling, and sometimes government institution were also not giving trustworthy information or timely update. Then these are not helping this chaos that we observe. So these are some of the lessons also that we should kind of put attention on. And also we saw these pictures that people collecting this debris. Debris, I saw you this picture with debris being ashore of our coastline, and then people going there and collecting these things. This was a really dangerous thing to do, and also very dangerous thing, and also kind of reckless thing to do. And also I saw these images going all over in on all major media, international media, and it was kind of a shameful thing actually also, and that gave a very bad picture about our society as well. So it's just a one thing about shame, but also it's a kind of very hazardous thing to do in this kind of situation. So in that situation, it was immediately needed to kind of block these areas and cordon off, and ask people not to even go near these dangerous debris fields. So that might have happened a bit later, but not immediately. So by that time, people may have taken or might have taken most of the things they could collect. Even there, I saw that people were just taking these nurdle bags, etc. Home. So it was really dangerous and shameful thing to do. Yeah, we can talk about disaster managed by local authorities, and one aspect we talked about those talked about that debris collection by people, and another thing was that there were so many organizations or local authorities that were involved in, and you need there were police, navy, environmental authorities, and other volunteers. They were all organized, all involved in this accident response, and responding to this pollution event. So there was a kind of long chain of commands and involving so many authorities. So it also made decision making kind of quite slow and also a bit chaotic. So it is really necessary to have one kind of one apex authority that can handle this kind of disaster, not just marine disasters. Maybe we should have authority to handle this kind of industrial disasters, because these are not typical natural events, natural disasters. These are particular technological events. You need and also very rapidly evolving events. So you need kind of expert opinion on a rapidly going basis. So it is really needed or really necessary to have established one apex body with enough technological know-how and also facilities and procedures to handle this kind of situations. Yeah, we can talk more about handling of this fire event during the extended accident, the fire period, because we know that the fire event also went on for a number of days. And then we saw that whenever it was possible, they try to put these water cannons on board the ship. But after 25th of May, the fire was basically engulfed the whole ship, and it was very clear that you are not going to save anything by or cargo, or not even the ship, by putting or try to fight this fire. And the only thing you were doing by try to put a lot of water on that you are kind of slowing down this fire and reducing the fire temperature. And there were a number of disadvantages. One thing was that when you reduce the fire temperature, you are kind of making partial combustion instead of complete combustion of these hazardous agents. In this kind of situation, it's always advantageous to have full combustion and let it burn down completely into carbon dioxide, rather than or some other basic elements, rather than trying to make it an partial combustion reactions, because these partial combustion reactions, when conducted under low temperatures, that could lead to all sorts of pollution, not just even carbon monoxide, but when you combust these polymeric agents especially, that can lead to so many organic products, partially combusted organic products, dioxins, furans, for example. These are really hazardous agents. So in this kind of situation, it's better to let them undergo combustion at higher temperature, rather than trying to fight the fire and making it low combustion. You can see throughout the fire, we saw lots of this thick black smoke. That is a total pollution engulfing those smoke. And due to the prevailing wind condition, this whole black smoke was just going towards our mainland rather than the ocean. So then and we clearly know that then most of these agents going with this black smoke, they should have deposited on our land rather than just going away from the land. So we basically took it to our country. So that's why I was telling, maybe at a certain period, the firefighting was unnecessary, useless, and also making it kind of the situation worse. And also, when you are doing this, putting lots of water onto this unsalvageable ship, you were collecting lots of water in the ship bottom. And this ship bottom water is now highly contaminated with lots of organic material and highly hazardous stuff. And it was a kind of chemical cocktail at the bottom of the ship, where you created it with firefighting water mixed with partially combusted products and the other material. So when the ship sank, what happened was that this whole chemical cocktail entered the sea, making it complete pollution disaster. So what I'm telling is that the firefighting strategy might have done differently during that late period of the fire. At the tail end of the fire event, by 1st June, now the fire was basically engulfed, or the fire was kind of extinguished to a very good level, because now fire went through all the flammable and combustible products and burnt itself through the fire. So now by this time, there was a window that fire basically extinguished, and we heard that a team of salvers and agents from the ship company went on board this ship for a brief period. So this was really a golden opportunity for our authorities to go on board the ship and collect evidence, collect strong evidence, video in photographs and sample collection, etc. That should have given a very, very clear picture on the situation of the ship and the pollution that could have resulted in the eventual sinking of the ship. So I do believe, I don't know if I'm wrong, Professor Alvis can also correct me. I never knew that any authorities went on board this ship and collected samples or took pictures. Only thing we happened to know was that salvers and the shipping company went on board. And we clearly know that they will never give us evidence, anything they collected. That's obvious that they won't, because they will always try to um, play down the pollution hazard, or the pollution repercussion, or the eventual pollution. So this was a golden opportunity for authorities to collect evidence. I don't know whether that had happened, and there is no evidence to prove that that happened, at least even related to sample collection. Um, yeah, can go. Then on by 2nd June, we heard that there was a clear order or some decision made to tow this ship. Now we know that the fire was engulfed, fire was kind of extinguished itself, and now the ship was kind of um, basically some smoke was there, but there was no fire because the fire basically burned through the ship, and they had this kind of ship structure remaining. But then there was a kind of decision or order to drag or tow this ship away from Sri Lankan shores. But when they try to do that, within short period of time, the the front section, a large part of the front section came out of the ship, and then water started going into the ship, and very quickly, within hours, ship sank in our waters. So this decision made to tow the ship is, I think, is a very unwise decision, because anybody knowing the repercussion of this fire, and also anybody knowing something about ship structures, should have realized that this is a ship went through a intense fire for so many days. Now the ship structure must have been so much weakened, and you are not really able to safely tow this kind of ship. The only way you could have towed this ship was that only after certain engineering investigation and doing some kind of reinforcement on this ship hull, and also after removing as many remaining containers as possible out of the ship, and that means lighten up the ship. You could have tried that. But before that, just after the fire, if you try to this ship, it was very evident that you are going to break this ship apart, and it should have it could have resulted in sinking. Then that's exactly what happened. So it is a very unwise decision to try to tow this ship away. And otherwise, we could have definitely handled this in a different, safer way if you just let it keep at that position, and then either reinforce or lighten it up by taking as many containers as possible. And then you could have done something, either towing or doing removing more cargo or more polluted stuff from the ship. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So the whole whole the ship sank together with its large remaining cargo, dangerous cargo, polluted cargo, and also this, like I said, large amount of chemical cocktail mixed with firefighting water and the chemicals. So then everything went into our waters. So now we were talking about post-sinking wreck handling and then wreck recovery. I know that the wreck recovery is going on now. I'm not sure whether it is finished now. I'm sure Professor Alice will give us a little bit of update on that after my talk. So at least I know that they started this wreck recovery maybe after more than 6 months of the sinking event. And but I know one thing: this wreck recovery is a serious business, because now we have certain shipwreck, and it is still containing lots of dangerous remaining cargo, hazardous cargo, and potentially it could even have some remaining oil. We don't know. Maybe the whole oil was burnt through the fire, but maybe still some tanks with oil could be intact. In any case, the handling of this wreck, now trying to recover in this wreck, is kind of disturbing the whole thing again. So this wreck recovery should be taken very seriously. Now you need a lot of risk assessment, pre-planning, and also emergency planning, risk assessment, and also you need a kind of access to an expert team, marine biologists, marine safety experts, and ship structural engineers, and other type of experts. You need opinion from all these groups before you do this, and also while you are doing that, because anything can happen during this ship recovery. There could be a new oil leak from a tank, and there could be more pollution from existing chemical cargo. So this is kind of very serious thing that you should done planned very rigorously, and also the whole plan must have been approved by a local authority. I am not sure whether this has been done. What I heard was that primary responsibility was given to a salver chosen by a ship company, and then they are doing their own work. I haven't heard about any regulatory oversight or any approval process. I don't know. Maybe Professor Alice will update us on that. But that's how it was going on. Yeah, like I said, because there is a potential that you make a second disaster out of that if you don't do this wreck recovery properly. And also this wreck recovery can be done in different using different techniques. There are ways to kind of lighten up the whole ship with a lot of buoyancy, giving some artificial buoyancy to this ship hull. There are different engineering techniques to do that, so that you put some kind of buoyancy kind of structures attached to the ship, and the let the ship kind of lift up. Sometimes it's possible with some of the ships. It all depends on necessary engineering assessment. Or the other option is that cut down it into pieces and remove it piece by piece, or what we call piecemeal approach. But this kind of piecemeal approaches are very polluting. That can lead to high pollution. So the best approach could have been the lifting the total thing up with proper techniques and using suitable equipments. But that really needs capable salvers with access to heavy equipment and techniques. So I heard that at least they were trying to cut this ship into pieces and recover. So that is what I heard regarding this event. Once again, I don't have the most updated information on the ship recovery. I'm just talking about the basic principles here. So let me finish by highlighting some of the recommendations that we can arrive from this one. Like I said, this Express Pearl disaster represents a very unique marine accident in the history of marine accident events happened in past. So we must do a lot of learning from this event, and not only just us in Sri Lanka, but regulatory authorities, international regulatory authorities like IMO should rigorously review this whole event and extract necessary learnings from this event. For IMO or international agents, I think these are the key points that they should look into that. They should look into these enforcement mechanisms and quality control mechanisms for applicable in dangerous good transport. That's that I explained at the beginning. And also they should review the port's responsibility with respect to this kind of rework request related to dangerous goods. And also they should put more attention to human factors and safety culture aspects prevailing in the marine industry. And also they should ensure that the awareness among seafarers or the community in this business with respect to existing codes and regulations. Like I said, it's not just good enough to make regulations, but they should ensure their compliance, enforcement, and also awareness. And I think the last thing is really important. IMO and other regulatory authorities must critically review the existing design requirement for this kind of ordinary container ships, which are allowed to carry large amount of dangerous goods. That is very important. And in addition to that, at local and regional level, we can do some, we can really look into some learnings from this event. Like I explained, countries like us, Sri Lanka, must establish some single point authority to plan, respond, investigate, and manage this kind of industrial disasters. It doesn't need to be only for marine accidents. It can be generally applicable for all industrial related accidents, large industrial fires or transport accidents, marine accidents, etc. So we must really looking into establishing such an authority with enough resources. Of course, it's not just sufficient to have authority structure, but they should have enough know-how, expertise, and also resources. For example, to handle this kind of marine disaster, you really need some resources like maybe ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, maybe marine access to marine aircraft, and maybe satellite images, and also basic response materials like this oil containment booms, oil absorbent pads, etc. Those kind of things. So they should be identified, listed out, and made available, because you cannot start looking for this kind of things when you have accident. These are the things you must plan for and have in your store, or at least know where to quickly get them. And regarding such an institution, we can look into these very well established organizations like United States Chemical Safety and Hazardous Investigation Board. And also in Norway, we have this Petroleum Safety Authority. That is primarily, that's their primary responsibility is to ensure safety in petroleum industry, offshore, onshore, both. So these are kind of good examples that we can look at and learn from. And also we realized, at least I know that there is a big void when it comes to legal basis for claiming environmental damage cost involving international parties. So we this is an area for our legal experts, and also maybe other parties involved in lawmaking or lawmakers to look at this situation and have strong and viable laws that can directly apply to claim these damages done to our environment, our waters, our sea in this kind of situations, so that the cases must be very clear cut, that if you do these damages, you must pay this much, or you must compensate this much to our damaged parties, our fishing industry, other people on the coast line, etc. For example, in US, they have this United States Oil Pollution Act. In that act, they have this engineering model called NRDA, Natural Resource Damage Assessment Model. Actually, these acts are embedded with model structure, so that when you have an event, you can directly use this kind of models like NRDA to estimate your cost. So everything is very clear. Nobody can argue about the damages they have done. If you have released this much of oil and this much of chemical, etc., then you are liable to this much. So these are kind of examples we can look at when we are making our laws. So that means these laws do not have to be just words. They can have very structured approach with engineering models and other kind of ecological models embedded in them, just like this USOPA Act. Yes, I think I talked about some of the other things. And also it's important that in these kinds of quickly developing or dynamically evolving industrial accident, it's very important to get decisions very quickly and rapidly. For that, you always need access to experts of different disciplines. It can be marine biologists, it can be safety experts, structural engineers, and other kind of engineering experts or other experts. You need access, because in a single authority you cannot have all these people. It is not simply viable. So I think in Sri Lanka, it is, I think, very important that you establish this kind of a database with different experts in different areas with their contact details. They don't have to be in Sri Lanka. They can be expatriates living in other countries. But with modern technologies, you can quickly communicate with people. But the important thing is that you need to have this database for different disciplines. So I think this is something we should seriously look into, creating such information databases and access. Yeah, I think I'm basically done. And very quickly, I can say this also. In the past, in Sri Lanka and also in other countries, we have had this kind of events, but not always we are learning these lessons from this event. There can be many reasons for that, because it could be due to no rigorous investigations, or maybe lack of transparency. That's a big problem in Sri Lanka. Sometimes you have information, but you are very reluctant to share it with the public or somebody, because you are scared of the information and transparency, and maybe it is expensive to do a rigorous investigation. and sometimes simple negligence, and also some culturally embedded context. That's what I try to emphasize, that this safety culture, it's one of the most important things actually. This accident doesn't happen randomly. They happen in a certain culture, in a safety culture. So I have seen that in most of the occasions in Sri Lanka, we do investigations just to see who to blame, just to find somebody or the number of a group of people to blame, rather than to find out what went wrong. Because we only learn if we understand what went wrong. We never learn from understanding who to blame. It's just a blame game. We can find so many people to blame, but we don't learn from that. We learn only when we find out what went wrong. So that should be the intention of these investigations. Yeah, so this is something I would also emphasize from George Santayana. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So that's exactly our concern here. So I'm basically done. Yeah, you can ask questions, or I think we are also open to discussion even rather than questions. Maybe Professor Alvis can also give a little bit of update about what he know. Yeah.
I think we've taken more than 1.5 hours now.
Right.
I'm glad that Professor Alvis is also there. Nirmalan has raised the hand, but just give me a second to give some context in relation to disaster management in health, so that some additional thinking will go into all the technical details that you have given. So this is why I've taken 3 minutes to just do that. I actually wrote it down.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
for example,
you can share the screen if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's okay. You can stop sharing and then we'll see. So Sri Lanka, see we see various kinds of disasters in medicine, and we are always trained to deal with, even if we don't know what the cause of the disaster is. Now, this is a continuous training, and the culture that we always inculcated is that the disaster is a system failure, and it's not really to blame anyone. So that is how it will go. Now, if you apply the same kind of principle here, we know that Sri Lanka suffered maximally out of this worst maritime disaster. Then the questions come in, say, for example, something like this, okay? Docking of this ship was refused by 2 other ports, as they had no facility to rework on the leaking of the acid container. Now, the question here is, we would have not known anything about this, the managing authorities, about the docking systems in Sri Lanka, that to at least ask why other ports have not allowed them in. So now in our setup, something that we have not seen, we don't know it. I know it in medicine, for example. When we started to introduce emergency medicine as a specialty in Sri Lanka in 2002, the year you qualified, there was a lot of resistance. And then in 2004, so we witnessed the tsunami. And then after that, then there was a disaster ministry that was established. But then now here we have a disaster, and then you have to ask what kind of system investigations that they had done to try to correct this kind of thing not to happen again. Now in emergency medicine, I know, we got a emergency casualty department in Colombo, which is very good. And I have personally gone there to investigate once. What kind of emergencies they are prepared to? They are prepared to deal with explosions and trauma. Now, what about if you had a biological disaster, or if you had a chemical disaster, if you had say, for example, radiation disaster? What are they going to do? So none of them have been trained, nor they had any facility to deal with this kind of thing. So this is the kind of thing that the Colombo ports may have also experienced, that it's a rare event and they were never prepared because it was not within their agenda. So that's one thing that is there. And then on the ship side also, we should be able to extract information and conclude, rather than to listen to and believe what they are saying. So that may have been a weak foot on our point. Then various kinds of corruptions happen at various levels. We know that. And those are external interference factors that actually kind of decapitate all the rules and regulations that govern it. So this is something that happens in the system. And for example, you were talking about lawmakers, and then and it's sad, isn't it? When this happened, a senior politician goes to the parliament and says it's a good thing that this happened at this time because we can get some compensation to sort our economic issue. Now, this is the kind of thinking that was there in our own parliament when you talked about law. So the media role in Sri Lanka is not investigative. We know that. And hence, the media has not much value, and they're not really contributing much to development of the country. So that is our current consensus. So these are the kind of things that we have to think about, how to correct system failures. And that's the kind of training that has to go into any kind of disaster management ministry or for ourselves. Then the technical details about it are important, what you suggested. How to fix various loopholes. That's why you need all this technical detail. So that's all I want to say. I'll allow others to. Nirmalan has already raised their hand. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to your notice, you already touched on it, Chula, that in 2004, just after the tsunami, some of the disaster management experts globally got together and helped us to draft the Disaster Management Act. It is a remarkable piece of work. It actually gives the Minister of Disaster Management the power to all purposes, to take over the running of the country in the event of a disaster, because he is supposed to be able to command the expertise required to handle up to 26 different kinds of disasters which are covered by the Disaster Management Act. And to my surprise, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and the pandemic is something that the Disaster Management Act provides for. But we did not even declare a national disaster, state of disaster. So the disaster management process, the system, was completely sidelined and ignored. And that is when this accident also occurred. So it is not surprising then that when our first representatives boarded the ship, all they did was to look around and see whether there was any fire. And since there was no fire, they said, no, there's no fire, and came back home. There was no response system that was activated. They should, and already the brown smoke was visible. Experts should immediately have been brought in, and the process of analysis set in motion. All the details relating to the cargo on board that ship should have been taken, and a strategic response should have been formulated immediately in consultation with all the experts in this region. And we could have responded to this properly and effectively if the Disaster Management Center in Colombo had been called in. So what we see here is a microcosmic presentation of the problem that our whole nation is faced with. It's a small version of it. The same thing happens in relation to everything. So that is what I wanted to just use this incident to highlight to all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nirvana. It's quite good that you highlighted why our systems are not working. That's exactly the point. Yes, Dharme, you have a question.
Thank you, Chula. Thank you, Deshai. I also watched your previous one, Chula, circulated. Learn to listen. This is very clear. Where is the problem? If I refer to your cross-section of the ship, where the container was there, that is where the problem is. This reaction with nitric acid, with organic material, is very clear in chemistry, very clear in this fume comes out. It is very clearly mentioned in IMDG code, as you mentioned. And so where is the problem? Problem happened during the process of loading the containers into the ship. What they have done is making a bomb inside the ship. What they should do is, if I remind, the position of the container, nitric acid container, was right in the middle, in the lower deck, covered by all other containers. And if people knew that, at that point, the captain and the crew and the people who load the containers should know the procedure. Put the safe ones in the lower deck and the dangerous ones in the outside, perhaps at the edge of the ship. So if there is a leak, they could very easily use the crane and put that leaking container into the sea without any danger. And then if there is any leak, you can wash it off very easily with spraying water. And that is the way to do it. And these people haven't done it. They made a bomb at the very early stage, putting this inside the deck, and they were sailing with this bomb. You can't blame Qatar or India or Colombo port authorities. They don't know where it is. The captain and the crew should know where the danger is. They should tell others what to do. Because what can they do? If it is right in the middle, you have to remove all other containers to reach that. That is not possible. So the lesson to learn is, when you load the containers, follow the procedures, put all the safe ones in the middle, and put all the dangerous ones at the edge. If there is any leak, put it into the sea, and the ship is safe. So we can avoid these kind of things. So the lesson to learn is that load the containers properly, follow the instructions, follow the codes. And I would not blame any ports in Qatar or India or Colombo. What the bomb exploded in Colombo. What can the port authorities do? They haven't got any information about the position of the nitric acid. What is happening there? They don't know. Even if they knew, it's too late to do anything. So I think the learn to listen is follow the procedures, health and safety, when you load the containers with dangerous chemicals. Thank you.
Very good, Dharma. I think Deshai and even Professor Alvis also here, take this as an opportunity, actually, because this is a system failure, and that's the way you should look at it. And see, at least you can put a draft, because there are several experts here who can contribute to your document to prepare what's the system we should follow to avoid this kind of thing happening in any port in Sri Lanka or even in the world, because that might take a long way if you put a proper system in place. I mean, Desha, you reviewed a lot of it, so you have a opportunity. If you have the time to do something like that, I'm sure people here will help you to put the rest of the things in place as well. So nobody else has raised their hand. I don't know, Professor Alvis wants to say anything.
Yes, thank you. I can point out a few things that are happening, because that probably should be of interest to you. May I just share some slides?
Yeah, just a second. I'll get you post.
So just updating you on things, and these days we are also in the dark for things happening at the last stages. Like, even I have a feeling that some of the MIPA officials are also in the dark. Yeah. For instance, like what has happened to the cargo, the ship, it was cut into 3. And as far as we know, the first part has been part has been taken away to Singapore or somewhere else. But the second and third parts, we have no clue what has happened. Not that we get day-to-day explanations, but it's not really shared. So if I to just state few things that are happening, I will just show it like this. So you know, we what we have had happening is that as far as environmental damage assessment teams, we have come up with an assessment, second report, which is about 6.4 billion US dollars. Interestingly, that is still not the final calculation. We have a significant calculation that still awaits coming up out with. So that will add on to this 6.4. So this is one. And AG there's a delegation that went to Express Pearl, Singapore, and taking a loan and so on. It's interesting. We only hear certain news out of that. And then currently the compensation that has been received is a direct compensation. Even after coming from Singapore, they said, okay, they have received some money from the agents have agreed, the ship owners have agreed, but these are pittance compared to, and there's a direct cost, which they have to pay, not the environmental stuff, which is about $8 million, which equals to specifically direct cost and coastal cleaning to some extent again, and then fishery losses, which of course coming from the ban that was enacted across certain places, and then that prevented fishermen going for their daily business, which was accounted for as the loss. So this is a situation. And then this question of disaster management center was raised. Yes, Sri Lanka is part of the Sendai framework. You know, this never really worked. The disaster management center was never in, and never was part of the equation at all. So that's something to be discussed separately. We know that for chemical response, biological response, and so on, there has been some work because government has inputs from the as per the Chemical Weapons Convention. There has been some training going on among the armed forces anyway, the Army, Navy, and Air Force. They do have a small unit which have been preparing for this chemical, biological, and radiation issues. So they do have been trained, and there have been people, but not the rest of the community. So it has primarily been with the armed forces that this training, I think, has happened. But that's part of the Chemical Weapons Convention, and right now that unit is also with the Ministry of Defense. So which include disaster management. I think disaster management too is with the defense. And interestingly, you asked about the port control but it's interesting, after 3 months from the incident, really there was another ship that had faced almost a similar situation. And you see that in the picture, that another cargo SAGT of the port of Colombo, they did the rework. They had a dangerous cargo area of the SAGT of the port of Colombo, and you can see that they managed it. I mean, it was a leaking container in the sense, and it was known, and you can see those secondary containers or the primary containers that are carrying the chemical. It was announced, I think, upon arrival or as they arrived, and so they probably have been given a special berthing facility, and SLPA moved into the task and completed the task, and the ship was on its way back. So as far as I know, this was also nitric acid, right? Maybe one can do a little bit of forensics on these pictures, but you see, one of the issues is we don't get this much of data. This is also something that I picked up, but and even when you ask from the company, you don't get information. They seems to be doing their day-to-day work and then quickly forgetting what they have done, and no communication whatsoever. So we are not learning from even success stories, and communicating about the strength of the port in managing. Anyway, so this is an example. This happened about in August, so May, June, July. So this was in August. In the same year, 2021, and a nitric acid cargo, apparently. So SLPA can handle this. I think Botheju mentioned that if you allow things to get out of hand, simply I don't think not this harbor nor any other harbor may be able to fight that. once you have allowed that to escalate into that situation. The only thing is to probably to allow it to die down with all the flammable stuff completed, and keep away from the whole place, and do not add additional burden to the pollution episode as well. That probably is the most sensible action, I think, which was very clear what Ben Botheju was presenting. Anyway, so if you do it well, if you announce it and then get your express birth rights and birthing rights and attend to that, SLPA has demonstrated that they can attend, and they can do that. Again, another discussion point had been that for Attorney General's point of view is that Singapore ship authorities may not respond to a court case or a decision made in Sri Lanka, that they will not respond, they won't come. Which, in a sense, we are showing our very poor ability to enforce anything, and taking our weakness as a matter of fact, and then trying to do things to please what is to the outside a sign of weakness. Which anyway, what you notice with Express Pearl and for some private cargo, in fact, another Sri Lankan company, if you notice, Trico Maritime, has actually arrested the company, ship belonging to the Express, which you can see as Express Kohima, and they have lodged in a court case, and they actually confiscated or whatever they did it in Colombo Harbor itself. So this information is also they're happening haphazardly, and I'm not sure how these things really finally peters out to the end game, because nobody is really fully aware of what's going on. So this is another private company using private lawyers and maybe going to the commercial courts doing this. And again, this is with respect for Trico Maritime, that probably means Middle Eastern cargo from Jebel Ali, or maybe some cargo that was put in for Sri Lankans who are returning home, their cargo. And they were this company was trying to get Express company to pay the damages or money. But as we are aware, the hull and cargo insurance, all that probably would have been completed some time back. And it's wonder why they were not really responding to this this stuff, which would have been insurance money. It's agent's fault, as far as I see. But anyway, so the question about Sri Lanka, the Singaporean authorities not responding to Sri Lankan court decision looks a little suspicious. I think it's not valid, considering this type of case has been happening right now in Colombo. And also their members are appearing for the other court cases, which are really now ongoing in Colombo, because the criminal case for Express Pearl is happening in the Admiralty Courts. Sorry, not in the Admiralty Courts, Colombo High Courts. So it's happening. So I don't know what's the excuse for AG to say that no, they won't come, so we go to Singapore. And Sri Lanka has gone to Singapore by also taking a loan, a foreign exchange loan. So it's very surprising. And then they go and negotiate something anyway they should be giving to the country because they were direct cost. And then you come and tell that we have won money. Because we secured grants or other payment. That's not really valid. And as media never reports things in an analytical manner, I don't think many people gets only half the information, and they either believe it or not, depending on probably more on a political view rather than on anything not in a scientific way. So this is another example. And then today, of course, interestingly, you see this news item coming on today's Sunday Times. Express Pearl Disaster Court rejects preliminary objections by the accused. So this is with regard to the criminal case. So it's quite good news, I would say, because they were objecting to carrying out the case in the country, or rather, the case that the Attorney General, the criminal side has put in, and the courts have dismissed the objection. So the case will continue. So which is good, because it's also quite delayed. For instance, when it comes to MT New Diamond, the criminal case was completed within about a week, and out of the 15 million possible penalty, 12 million rupees was the given judgment, not the maximum. But in this case, we really hope for the maximum to be given, so it supports our environmental case. So we always been telling to the criminal side of the party So you can see the Deputy Solicitor General Madhav Tennakon, who is on that part, but the other part is handled by the Attorney General and a different group. So this is good news that we saw in today's newspapers. And then, there has been so much of controversy, which I think Deshai kind of alluded to by saying that we have discussions about whom to blame rather than what went wrong. Definitely, but in adding to whom to blame, we do have lots of other additional stories that are created. So you can see we had multiple stories coming out from the parliament, and our time is also getting lost in a sense by trying to be as environmental damage thing. We have also little moved away from doing that after giving the second report, because there had been no support at all, and we have stopped doing much of the work right now. And even though there are two committees in the parliament, one committee has already given a report. The second committee it's probably have few meetings, but not yet completed their task. But you see ministers and others coming out with all sorts of stories, and that is adding to the problem and definitely not providing solutions to the issue. So that's what I would like to say, in a sense, without going into detail, type of thing that are happening right now. So maybe I stop there.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Alice, for showing our weaknesses as a part, and it tells us all that we should work on improving our systems so that we have stringent recommendations and even rules and regulations, so that we don't get into this kind of thing. Not just in marine industry, but there are lots of other industries that should follow a similar kin. So thank you very much. We've gone over 2 hours today, but anybody else, any questions? Dr. Botheju, thank you for that. But I would ask you to think about writing up a kind of a system from the available things, saying whether this can be improved, because a little bit of publicity and thinking, and even sending into international agencies, you may be able to get a better understanding and or attention, so that other things are implemented.
Yeah, actually, just to update on that, Professor Chula, Professor Aldis, I myself, and also Professor Mettika from University of Jardhanapura, we were kind of editing a book on this express pearl disaster, which will soon be published by LSV actually. So in that book, not only us, but we also gathered different chapters or articles from a number of other experts, including marine biologists in Sri Lanka. So that is one thing we are working on, and also it's almost done. So that will be published. So that will receive some quite high attention from IMO and other responsible parties, and also interested parties internationally. And in addition to that, we were also editing a special issue of this marine pollution bulletin journal. So that also went well, and that is also now almost published. So those are two things we worked on to bring this to international level. But I agree that we can do more. Especially it will be.
Yeah, what I'm saying is just a brief kind of a operating procedure in outline, say these things. So then it will address all the things that you got in your book and everything as kind of steps to follow in certain situations. So you may be able to get it published, because I have done this in medicine during the COVID time. So you suddenly had a sudden idea, and then you send recommendations, usually come from various committees, but just a couple of authors get your recommendations published internationally, because it's valuable. So this is an opportunity for you to bring in a set of recommendations that will be recognized. Usually that might take years to come through committees and committees, where 2 or 3 people will be able to make a major impact in the world. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of learning here, and also litigation things and all that can come into the same procedure, and also getting the disaster management people to get involved and trained and be ready and that kind of thing. So yeah, there'll be people from here already, I mean, who might want to help you in that, and then get this kind of thing going. Yeah, that will be the positive outcome of such a negative disaster for us,
Exactly.
so that
Yeah.
we will improve.
Yeah, we can look into that. Thank you, Professor Chula, and also
Yeah.
once again, thank you for organizing this, and looking forward to many more interesting discussions in future on this and also other related things. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for everyone's contribution. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good day.
Bye. Yeah,
Thank you.
goodbye.
Bye.